What young boy doesn't want to trail after his older brothers? What young boy isn't eager to please them, to be included in their adventures? Well, Joseph, or Yusuf as he's called in Arabic, was no exception. His older brothers invited him out to play, but his joy quickly turned to confusion and then dismay. His brothers turned on him. Their plan was to kill him. At the last moment, their consciences nagged at them. They had second thoughts. One brother suggested throwing Joseph into a well instead. They figured there was a possibility that a passing caravan might come by and rescue him. But there was no guarantee that this would happen, and even if it did, Joseph could very well have died before anyone came by. Imagine Joseph in that well, in the middle of the desert, alone and frightened. He had been betrayed by the very ones who should have loved him best. His beloved father wasn't around. But even though he had no one, he still had God. God sought to soothe and console him. God told him that one day he would remind his brothers of what they had done. In this way, God was reassuring Joseph that he'd lived beyond the terrible moment that he was in. He would escape from that well, and the truth would come out. Joseph would be able to confront his brothers. Sometimes, in times of difficulty, we turn away from God, thinking that God cannot see or hear what we are going through, or we think God just doesn't care. But even if God doesn't immediately rescue us from our suffering, God can be a source of solace and comfort to us in our time of need, realizing that we're not quite alone, that God is with us, aware of the tears that fall, listening to our pleas for help, knowing of our unbearable pain. This gives us hope that everything will turn out all right. If God knows, surely God can come to our assistance if He so wills. We can ask Him to relieve us of this difficult test. And if God wills it that we endure the test, then perhaps He can help us to see the wisdom in His decision. Joseph's harrowing ordeal also shows us that God has a plan and is in control of all things. Joseph was separated from his family. He was kidnapped, taken to Egypt, then sold into slavery, wrongly accused of adultery, and thrown into prison. His situation seemed hopeless. But there's an interesting verse tucked into the Quranic narrative of Joseph. In that verse, God reminds us that He is in complete control of all affairs. Against all odds, Joseph rises to a position of power and fame in the Pharaoh's court, and he is reunited with his father Jacob and his brothers. God's plan from the very beginning was to establish Joseph in the land, give him authority, and catapult him to success and greatness through the difficulties he had overcome. To do that, God had to get him to a foreign country. That's where the passing caravan came in. The trials Joseph experienced were intended to fulfill divine purposes, even if he and everyone else around him were unaware that this was the plan. So yes, life might seem hard. Yes, we may not know why we're experiencing so much pain, but everything is in the capable hands of God. God ultimately has plans for each of us that we cannot grasp. Perhaps these challenges are necessary for some reason. Even if we do not see the positive outcomes of these challenges in this life, perhaps we will see them in the hereafter. So let's not respond by despairing or rebelling against God. Let's instead put our faith and trust in God that our bad circumstances will ultimately lead to good. Last but not least, we realize that trials are a part of life. We may think we've done something wrong to deserve these difficulties, that God is punishing us. But the truth is, no one is exempt from suffering. Anxiety, loneliness, job loss, divorce, death, stress, illness, these happen to the best of people. Even the prophets suffered. We may not know why we experience trials, but we do know that we are tasked with rising to the challenge. We are encouraged to be patient and to strive to do good despite our circumstances. Because no matter how great our sufferings, they will come to an end someday, and we will find ourselves in a realm within which there is no anxiety or trouble, provided that we have prepared ourselves properly for it. The story of Joseph gives us perspective on how to approach times of difficulty and maintain our relationship with God. We learn that first, God can be a source of solace and comfort for us in challenging, uncertain circumstances. Second, though we may not understand God's plan, trusting that God is in control of all things helps us to bear the pain. And third, suffering is a normal part of life. We all experience it. What differentiates some of us from others is that they are able to rise above their circumstances and remain devoutly committed to God. I'll be back next time to explore the story of Mary, or Maryam, on whom be peace. She too was alone in the great unknown. I'm Safiyyah Ally for Let the Quran Speak.
Look, Safiyyah, my inbox is full. I have questions from our viewers.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Your questions are coming out of my ears.
That's why we've got something really exciting planned for you, a YouTube Live Q&A. You can join us live and Dr. Shabir will answer your questions as they come in.
This event will kick off our special Ramadan programming as well as our fundraising campaign.
It's all happening on Sunday, April 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel, Quran Speaks.
And that's right before Ramadan. I can't wait to see what questions we'll get.
Me too. It'll be fun to chat with you in real time.
Subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss this event.